There was a time when a man's value was automatic. Simply being a man, working, existing, providing was enough. Society rewarded that. Women depended on that. The world was built in a way that made women rely on men for survival, protection, and status. But the world has changed, and what many men don't realize is that women have changed with it. Today, more and more women are waking up and not against men, but for themselves. The modern woman has learned to build, to earn, to think, to plan. She knows how to open her own bank account, start a business, sign a lease, or even raise a child without being financially destroyed. She doesn't need to wait for permission anymore. And that changes everything. For centuries, men's power was built on dependency. Women needed men to eat, to have shelter, to survive. And when someone needs you to survive, you can mistreat them and they'll still stay. Because leaving would mean suffering. But what happens when survival is no longer in your hands? When a woman can feed herself, house herself, dress herself, protect herself, she stops tolerating disrespect. And that's what's happening right now, globally. The rise of technology and social media didn't just change how people date, it changed how people think. Women all over the world are watching other women succeed. They see single mothers building businesses. They see divorced women traveling, healing, thriving. They see girls their age buying property, launching brands, investing. They see women who walked away from toxic men and never looked back. And those women are not dying, they're glowing. That's a revolution, a quiet revolution of female independence. See, before, men could use the sentence, "I provide for you," as a weapon. They could cheat, lie, shout, disappear, because they knew you couldn't leave. They could say, "You'll never find someone like me," because they believed they were your only option. But that power is gone, because the moment a woman can pay her own bills, she starts to see clearly. She realizes that money was never love, that being a provider is not a personality, that paying rent doesn't excuse emotional neglect, betrayal, or manipulation. So now, when a man cheats, lies, disrespects, she leaves. Not because she stopped loving him, but because she can afford to choose peace. Let's be honest, men still matter. We still need good men, real men, men with purpose, loyalty, integrity, men who lead with character, not control, men who love like protectors, not like owners. But men like that have become rare because too many modern men want the benefits of the old system, respect, submission, loyalty, without offering what the old system required: protection, consistency, faithfulness. You can't ask a woman to be feminine when you're not being masculine. You can't demand submission when you offer no direction. The equation has changed. Many men say women today are difficult. They don't listen, they're too independent. But what they really mean is women today are no longer afraid. Because fear used to be the foundation of relationships. A woman stayed not because she was happy, but because she had no exit. But today's woman knows her worth. And when a woman knows her worth, she becomes unpredictable to weak men. You can't control a woman who's not scared to be alone. Now, let's be fair. Not every man is bad. There are still men of value, men who show up, men who protect, men who build, men who respect. But these men are not loud online. They don't brag. They don't insult women on podcasts. They don't compete with femininity. They complement it. Their value comes from stability, not noise. And that's where the modern man has lost his way. Too many talk, too few act. The internet has exposed the male illusion of importance. For the first time, women can see behind the mask. They can read about narcissism, trauma, manipulation. They can learn about financial abuse, emotional gaslighting, and red flags. They're no longer walking blind into relationships. They have information, and information brings power. So men can't rely on the old tricks anymore. Guilt, shame, control, fear, because the new woman has studied the game. She knows what love bombing is. She knows what emotional neglect looks like. She knows what to do when a man tries to manipulate her through silence. Today's woman is not angry, she is just aware. And awareness changes the balance of power. Men used to hold the key to survival property, but women now hold the key to standards. That's why so many men are bitter. Not because women have changed for the worse, but because women have stopped settling for less. Let's talk about money. For centuries, men equated money with masculinity, but now women are earning and sometimes earning more. They're doctors, CEOs, influencers, business owners, freelancers. A woman can make $5,000 a month from her laptop, something that used to take a man's full salary, and that terrifies men who only had money to offer. Because when a woman has her own, the rules change. She doesn't need you to survive. She wants you to add peace, not problems. And when you bring chaos, she doesn't beg. She replaces. Men say women don't respect men anymore. That's not true. Women respect good men. But the problem is, too many men think being a man is a title, not a responsibility. They think masculinity is about dominance, not discipline. They think authority means control, not protection. They think loyalty is optional, but respect is mandatory. You can't demand what you don't give. The truth is, men would still have high value if they behaved with high value. If they were honest, if they were faithful, if they kept their word, if they protected the women who loved them instead of breaking them. The problem isn't that men are unnecessary. The problem is that many have stopped being trustworthy. And let's say this clearly, men are important. They are builders, thinkers, leaders. But what's the use of being important if you refuse to evolve? Women are evolving. Women are reading, studying, healing, earning. Meanwhile, too many men are stuck in a nostalgia that doesn't exist anymore. They want traditional wives in a modern world, but they don't want to be traditional husbands. They want submission, but they don't want sacrifice. They want respect, but they don't want responsibility. They want loyalty, but they don't want limits. And so the dynamic has shifted. Women are no longer asking, can he provide for me? They're asking, can he lead me spiritually? Can he give me peace? Can he make me feel safe emotionally? Because financial provision without emotional security feels empty. A woman who has her own money doesn't need luxury. She needs loyalty. She doesn't need control. She needs connection. And when a man can't offer that, she walks away without guilt. The modern man will regain his value the day he learns that masculinity is not about domination. It's about direction. That love is not about control, it's about care. That a real man doesn't lose value when a woman gains independence. He gains peace because he no longer carries her alone. But too many men see equality as a competition. They see strong women as a threat instead of a gift. Let me make it simple. Men still have value, but value is not a birthright. It's behavior. The problem is not that women don't need men. The problem is that women no longer need a broken man. Because once a woman becomes her own provider, she can finally choose love based on peace, not pressure. So, to the men who still want to be respected, desired, loved, you can still be kings, but you can't rule with fear. The crown now belongs to those who protect, not those who control. A real man's value will never fade, but only if his actions match his words. And to the women listening, never apologize for evolving, never shrink to make a man feel powerful, and never stay in the name of love when peace is no longer present. The world is changing, and so are we. Men who rise with us will build the future. The others will keep blaming women while watching them win. Now, men haven't lost their value. They've just lost access to women who finally know theirs. If this spoke to your spirit, stay with me. I don't just make videos, I build awareness. Subscribe, share this with another woman who needs to hear it, and welcome to Reborn Woman. Here we don't beg for love, we rise in our worth.